Welcome back. My name is Dr. Sahil Momin. I'm the head of strategy and projects at Startup Nation. And today we're going to talk about business models. Now, before we talk about business models and how to generate revenue, how to make money, we need to understand a few basics about creating a business models, right? Uh, Today's entire lecture will focus on a few types of businesses. A few of the offerings that Startup Nation is actually thinking of bringing on, right? And I'll walk you through each one of them. First is a B2B platform, a B2B service, not a platform, a business to business service where Startup Nation will offer apps and web development service to all startup enthusiasts. So what a common problem that we've seen in the market is that people require or want to raise funds to develop an app. Now, we may not be able to fund everyone, but we can definitely try and hire an in-house tech team to develop an app for them. Right? That's one of the business models that we'll be talking about. Now, these are just models I want to let you know so that we will be talking in reference to them. Yeah. So first is a B2B app making service. Second is a platform that you are developing in-house for managing the compliance and due diligence of startups. A problem statement there is many investors or incubation centers, after they've put in the money, after they've put in the effort, are having difficulties tracking the compliances and the due diligence of startups. Also, the impact that the startup is creating financially, socially, environmentally, and so on. We want to develop a platform where any startup can simply be a part of, can upload all of his due diligence, get it verified by a CA or a CS, and allow their investors and incubation centers to view it, right? This will basically reduce the operational burdens and bottlenecks from both ends. So startup will not have to constantly cater to the needs of incubation center and investors all the time. Every time they give them a call about any of the documents or something that they require, you don't need to. You can just refer to that. And similarly, on the investor side, they can monthly track how the startup is doing financially, where they're spending their money, where the money is being allocated, and how much of it is being used. Right? So second is another B2B, business to business platform for compliance management, startup compliance management, right? Right. Third is a tool that it's one of these side project time pass apps that we are developing. It's called Judge My Lawyer, right? Our problem statement was kind of stupid and silly, but the problem statement there is people don't know which lawyer is a good lawyer in a court, right? Because no one actually kept a record of which lawyer is doing good, which one is doing bad, which judge is doing this, which judge is doing that, and how they're favoring each other. Simple B2C app, right? Wherever a customer or a consumer wants to identify a good lawyer for, let's say, a civil court or a criminal court or a corporate law, like a corporate lawyer or something in a specific court, they will get all that information on a palm of their hand via an app. They can simply browse through it. They can look at the case histories that the lawyer has done using the judgments, the past judgments that are publicly available, right? So they can view all the judgments for the specific lawyer and compare it to the other lawyers from the same court, right? So a B2C model for general public where they will get access to basic information, but it's a pay-per-view model, right? So they'll pay per user every lawyer they want to view. So an app to identify a good lawyer. And the fourth project that we want to talk about is something that we are developing for one of the interns, which is called MoolC2, right? The app that I mentioned, the business model that I mentioned last time. It's a simple platform where traders across India, this is an India-centric app. So traders across India will be able to price check any given commodity for, let's say, fruit, vegetable, poultry, eggs, fish, from one place. So if I am sitting in, let's say, one part of the country, I want to know what's the price, a market price of an X commodity, let's say onions or potatoes in the market in the northern part of the country. I can get all that data with me. Okay. So it's a B2B to C app where the consumers and customers are different as well in this case, right? Which is basically an app for price check, simple price check, right? But this is a business to business and business to consumer app. This app has two models, right? So these are the four businesses we're going to look at when we talk about today's lecture, which is the business model. Now, every time you want to create a business model for your business, you need to identify two very particular segments. One is who is the consumer and who is the customer. Now, they may not always be the same thing, right? The difference is very simple. Consumer is the person that uses your product, right? That utilizes your product. Customer is the person who pays for your product, right? Let's take the first example, right? The B2B app for, or let's take let's take the first example, right? An app making service for startups. Who's a consumer? Startups. We are developing this and this is being used by the startup, right? Who's paying for it? Also the startups. How are they paying for it? They pay us in either equity or they pay us in money, whichever. We give the option of both or a mix of both, right? If you don't have much money, you want to pay in equity, that works as well. So in this case, in model one, the consumer and customer is the same. The person who's paying for it and the person who's using it is the same entity, right? Let's take the second model now. The compliance management app, right? The compliance management for startups apps. Now, startups are the ones who are going to be using it the most, right? They'll be able to track their own compliance. They'll be able to track how their own financial usage, and they'll be able to showcase it to their incubation centers, their investors whenever they ask for it. But who's paying for it? So my consumer is my startup. My startup is the one who's using the app on a regular scale, on a regular basis, and managing and monitoring all of its compliances, all of its finances in one place. They're my consumer. But are they also my customer? Are the startups paying for it? No. We want to keep this app completely free for the customer, for the startups, right? So startups are my consumer, but they're not my customer. What about the incubation center? Are they paying for it? No. The incubation center monitors a startup for maybe 3 months, 6 months time. That's all they require access for. We don't want to charge them because it's a relationship, it's a business relationship thing for us. That's why we don't want to charge the incubation center. Incubation center gets it for free. Incubation center, again, is a different type of consumer. They are only monitoring the startups, but they're still not paying it. They are using the app. They're consuming the product for monitoring a second user, but they are not paying for it. That's why they're not the customer. The investors, on the other hand, right? A person who's investing a large sum of money into a startup wants to keep track of how that startup is doing financially every day or every month, right? Where is that money being spent? Is it being spent on marketing? Is it being spent on R&D? Is it being spent on product development, right? Because the startup promised me that he needs money for product development. So is the startup actually paying it up for, or is actually putting that money for product development? I need to take a look at that. I am willing to pay for it. I am willing to pay to keep track of where my money is being used, right? So now my investor in this case is my customer and my consumer. The first two types of users were only consumers. They were not my customers. The last segment, the investor, right? He is paying for the app. He is paying for the usage of the app. He is my customer, right? Now, let's talk about, so in the first model, the consumer and customer were same. Second model, consumers may be different, but the customer can be a consumer and customer at a different segment, different customer segments, right? Now, the third model, a B2C app, Judge My Lawyer. It's a side project that we're doing. Anyway, so in Judge My Lawyer, who's my consumer? Is it the user who wants to view all the lawyers in a specific code to identify which lawyer is good? Yes. But is he paying for that service? No. Not necessarily. Right? So the way we have designed the app is a user who wants to identify which lawyer is good, a ranking system, is able to see that ranking system and the name of that lawyer easily. If they want to view the records, let's say the stacks, how many cases they've won, how many they've lost, how many they've settled, right? They'll have to pay for it. So in this case, my consumer, my user can be my consumer and my customer. The option is with them. It's not with you. It's a freemium model, right? On the other hand, the lawyers, do they have much control over this? No, because all the data that is generated in that app is generated using the publicly available judgments. Every time a court makes a judgment public, that's where the app takes its data, identifies who's the winning lawyer, who's the losing lawyer, and who was the judge on it, and increases or updates the stats accordingly. Now, in this model, is the lawyer paying anything? No. Is the judge paying anything? No. But the lawyer wants to view how he's doing compared to other lawyers in the same court. There's a curiosity whether I am better than this lawyer or not. Right? There's a competitive spirit over there. So now, if he wants to go and find out about his own stats and compare it to, let's say, one of his competitors, he will pay for it. He will pay for his own stats. He will pay for the competitor stats. So my lawyer is also a separate customer segment that is a paying customer. Okay. So again, in this model, I have two types of users and they are both consumers and they have an option of becoming a customer at the same time. That's where the freemium model comes in. Now, the last case scenario, right? A price check app, right? Basically, an agri app that will tell me the prices of produce in different parts of the country. Who's using it, right? Who's my customer segment here? The traders. Now, this is also the app that we discussed last time, right? So we have the traders, we have the farmers, and we have the middlemen, right? So normal middlemen who source products for the traders and from the farmers and so on. Now, the price check is not free. The entire app does not work on any free model. If a trader wants to view the price of any commodity, they'll have to pay for it, right? So there is no freemium model here. There is no partial free, partial customer model. Every user on this app is a customer, is a paying customer. There is no information that the users of this app will get which is for free. Plain and simple, right? So in my first model, my consumer and my customer was the same. In the second model, my consumer, I had three segments. Two of them were consumers, one of them was a consumer and a customer. In my third model, one of them was, which was the app for the identity. Yeah. So in my third model, I had two customer segments. Both of them had an option to be a consumer and an option to be a customer. And my third model, every single one of my customers, every single one of my consumers is my customer, right? And this is still in general public. So no matter, you can download it for free, but whenever you have to view the app, whenever you have to view the prices, you will have to pay for it. Now, why did we go through all of this? Because it is very important for you to identify the product that you're making, who will be using that product and who will be paying for that product. Whenever you make a business model, it should ensure that you have a high number of consumers, but at the same time ensure that you have a higher number of customers. Because if you're not getting paid for the work that you're doing, then you are just charity case, right? You better stop doing a startup and open an NGO. Plain and simple. Now, let's talk about a very interesting case, right? In this case, in the consumer customer model, let's talk about social media apps. I'm sorry, I was so throat today. So let's talk about a social media app. Any of your Meta apps, any of your LinkedIn apps, whichever. Are they free to use? Yes. So everyone who is on that app is a consumer, right? Who's paying to use that app or who's paying that app? Most of these platforms make money from ad revenue. Now, ad revenue comes from specific corporates, let's say companies. It's a B2B model, right? Business to business. Businesses come to the platform, they look at how many users you have on that platform, and they pay you an X fee to put an ad up on your platform so that your users can see, your consumers can see. Now, in this case, the consumers are also the product that is being sold to the corporates, because then if you have high number of users, you will get paid more for the value, right? So the users of a social media app are actually the product of that app. The app is simply the medium to gather all that product in one place and then to sell that product to a corporate, to a company or any XYZ startup who wants to market their product on the platform. Right? So this is a very unique case, because in this case, you create a business model where your consumer becomes your product, and your the quantity of your product determines its value to the market. Whether depending in the market, it's being paid for by the companies, right? So I hope everyone's clear on this part of how to identify a consumer and a customer. A person who's paying for it is a customer. The person who's simply using it, every person who's using it is a consumer. Now, generally, in business, we talk about three types of models that we work with, right? There's this, an overview of models. One is a B2B model, which is business to business, where you create a product for a business to use it. Second is a B2C model, where you create a where your business caters to customers. So it's business to customer or consumer. And third is a B2G model, where you're creating products and or services specifically for government bodies and larger organizations. Now, in many cases or many people put B2G as a subset of B2B, where they look at government bodies as business bodies, as a business organization, who just being run by a different type of board. But culture plays a role here. Depending on the country or the region you come in, the operational module or the modus operandi of the government is quite different. So you can fit it into either. Now, how do you develop a business model? How do you generate revenue from it? Now, overall, there are a few things that you need to first write down. First is your customer segment. This is something that you have done last time when you did your customer persona, right? Then you talk about the customer channels. So all the channels that you will be using in order to deliver this product or a service. You talk about the value proposition. Of your product or service to each customer segment, right? Then you talk about the creation part or the management or the logistics part of things.
बर्बाद भी कर दा बरोबर फास्ट होते तो अब समझ लगी यहाँ तो
Okay. Now, after you've identified the value proposition for each customer segment and the product and the service, you focus on how you're going to deliver this product and service. You identify your partners. These are very important, right? Who are the organizations or individuals you'd partner with? Who are the stakeholders you'll be working with in order to deliver this product? Then you list down the activities that you will need to do in order to make your entire supply chain more efficient, or just to establish a supply chain even. Supply chain is when you create something and you want to deliver it to a market. So you have to identify and create all the activities and stakeholders in such a manner that your product can be delivered to your customer. Then the resources that you have, or the resources that you can deploy for this activity, right? Lastly, customer relation. How are you going to monitor your entire segment and to make sure that your customer is satisfied by your product and service? And the last two things which are extremely important in business is one is a cost structure and the other one is the revenue stream. Right? Now let's talk a bit about, now this are, most of them are self-explanatory or something that has been covered in the previous video. The customer segment was covered in previous video where we spoke about customer personas. The value proposition for each of those customers was also covered in the previous videos. Partners are something that are very unique to each business where you have to identify it, let's say a distributor or a wholesaler or a transport company that will ship your product. Or let's say if you're building an app, then you have to identify a medium company that will promote your app, your app stores, right? Your Play Store and which is the other one, Google and Apple Store, right? So those kind of partners. Along with that, marketing agencies that will actually promote your product and how the medium that they'll product, right? So those kind of partners and stakeholders. So this is a very business to business thing. When I want to speak on the overview, let's talk a bit more about how you identify which revenue model or revenue stream is ideal for your business. Again, you're going to use the same for businesses that you spoke about. Now, once you've listed down all of these things, you write down what's the revenue stream, right? Now, many of you tell me that you want a subscription. Many of you telling me that they will, if you're making an app, there's a subscription model, there is a freemium model where some of it is free, some of it is paid. In many cases, if you're selling a product, right, there's a discount promotional thing where you give a discount to either the wholesaler or to the direct customer so that more people adopt it and so on. But what's the right one for your business? How do you identify it? Now, there is no right answer to this, but I'll tell you the model that we use, the mindset that we use when we designed the revenue models for these four businesses. In a B2B app service, right, in the app making business, what was the pain point? Like, so in the B2B app business, when we looked at the entire business and the ecosystem, what we found out was that the pain point of that business was not so much that there's a lack of talent. It was a lack of appropriate allocation of that talent in order to deliver and make that app. To put it the right way, if someone in Europe wants to build an app, or someone in America wants to build an app, or anywhere in the world wants to build an app, the talent required, the human resource required to build that app is quite expensive. And the first startup for that matter, so because we focus on the startup segment, if a startup wants to build that startup will have to raise money simply to hire a team that can build that app. Now, app building, when we looked at it as a whole, it required some time to first structure the app, design the app, build the app. But once it is built, to maintain the app, you don't actually require a lot of money. You only required a limited amount of service. So there was a very big drop in the expense curve there. At an ideation stage, you don't require any money. But once you have conceptualized it, when you start hiring people to build, it goes here. The moment it is, and you design, first you design, then you develop, then you do the backend integration. But once everything is done, the actual expenditure to maintain that app drops suddenly. So there was just a 1 year, 2 year period or 6 month period from conceptualization to deployment, which was very expensive. And then after that, they did not require that human resource anyway, right? So when I'm a startup in Europe or let's say in America or any other part of the world where app development is very expensive, I simply need to find and outsource the development to a company which will do it in shorter period. Now, that is a value proposition that many of the software companies have taken up. Right? There are many software companies that will develop those apps. But what is the problem there for startups? These software companies were also charging a large sums of money, which was fair because the talent and the human resource in that segment was very expensive. But startups did not have money for that. Startups were raising money to pay to a vendor to build this app. And this was something that was the nature of the business in that segment. So the pain point we identified, startup will raise money. When they raise money, they sell equity, right? Instead of them selling equity to an investor and then having that using that money to pay for a tech company to build that app, we will bridge that gap. Instead of taking money from the startup, we will take equity from the startup. Now we will be very selective because we don't want any Tom, Dick and Harry to show up at our doorstep telling us to build us an app for that. So we'll be very selective. But the ones that we select, we'll build the app, we'll deploy it for them, and we will help them monitor, and to a certain extent, at least to the initial phase, help them monitor the actual health of the app, is it working properly or not, test it out and so on. And we will get paid in equity. Instead of a startup paying an equity to an investor, taking money from them and then spending it on a third-party app developer, we will be the app developer for them. You give us the equity in exchange. Now, can we take everything in expenditure? Can we take all our expenditure in equity? No, right? Because in that way, we are onboarding all the risk on us and the startup's not taking any risk. So what we decided, we'll take up to 70% of the payment in equity and 30% of the payment in whatever money is required for that. That 30% is something that will help us monitor our day-to-day expenses. 70% is the investment for the future. But when we identified a market gap and when we created this business model, the sole reason of creating this business model was to cater to a problem or a need that startups were facing. Although it was possible for startups to raise funds from investors, not many investors were giving money to startups who are at the initial stage in India, right? Or in general in Southeast Asia. Investors were risk averse. They didn't want to pay for someone to develop an app and then hope that that app will work well. And that put everyone in a bit of a grind. Startups were not able to progress because they were not able to raise that fund. Investors had the fund, but they were not able to deploy it because they had their own internal guidelines telling them that do not invest in such and such startup at this and this stage. We come in, we can bridge that gap. Anytime you want a business model, you need to be addressing a problem or bringing a solution to the table that people are comfortable with, right? That's where it comes from. Second one, the compliance, B2B app. Do startups like being monitored? No, no one likes being monitored. But is it necessary? Yes. If the startup wants to raise any funds, they will have to be due diligent. They'll have to make sure that all their paperwork, all the compliances are in order, their expenditures are in order, every money that they've received in form of a grant, in a small fellowship, is being utilized for the right reasons and everything. And they need to be able to show this to an investor whenever they approach an investor for investment. No one likes to be monitored. Now, if I tell the startup, you know what, I give you this app, pay for the app, that will allow your investor to monitor the use of its resources, and you'll have to actually assign your accountant or your CA to make sure all the compliances are in order. Now, all the compliance checklists the app gives you, but you still need to upload the document, save it, get it verified, basic stuff. Expenses, the same stuff, right? How much salary you gave, how much R&D you spend. No one likes to answer that question because startup founders like to focus on business. They want to create their startup, create that business rather than focusing on the compliance part of it. So can I go to them and ask them that, hey, listen, can you pay me X amount that I'll do? It'll not work. It'll never work. No startup will give it to you, right? Also, many startup founders are broke, so they will anyway not pay for it. They are more comfortable sending out an email. If I go to an incubation center, now most incubation centers work on a Section 8 model. They are not for profit, right? They get their money from either CSR, donations, or smaller programs that they run in collaboration with other partners. If I tell an incubation center that, hey, I developed this app that will allow you to reduce your financial burden of hiring a person to just monitor all the startups, will they be willing to pay for it? Yes. They are in a gray area. They are in a bit of a comfortable space because they're saving on human resource there. But we live in an environment where they're more comfortable with that human resource than they are with an app right now. It's still a transitioning page, right? But you have to understand that things are being run cross-generational. There's a certain generation that are more comfortable giving a call to a human being than to check on that app. But are they actually bringing in that much value to me as an incubation partner, where they will onboard, let's say, even if they onboard all their startups, would they be pay? Can they pay for monitoring of all that startup? No, they don't have the money. Some incubation centers that we work with have 200 startups. Now, if I ask them to pay me per startup, that value will be very high. Will they be able to afford? No, they are very happy hiring a cheaper labor. सर ठीक है, हाँ बाद में दे देगा 3 बजे है ना, अब बोलो मत ना रहो, मेरा एक खत्म दो. Now, so will I be comfortable doing that? No, right? But incubation center can bring me startups. They have access to, like I said, some have 200 startups. Having those startups on my platform allows me to promote my platform into a larger population of startups. That creates an environment for more and more investors to come and onboard on that startup, on that app. Which in turn it creates an environment for more and more startups to come and enter that app, like register on that app. So it creates a proper environment for me. Now let's talk about the third segment, an investor segment. The investor who is, for example, putting up, let's say, anywhere between $20,000 to $20,000, about 20 lakh rupees, which is 20,000 euros, not dollars. 20 lakh rupees to, let's say, 1 crore rupees, which is 100,000 euros. If I'm putting that much money in per startup, will I be willing to pay, like, say, a very small fee of 10 euro per month to monitor that startup? Right? I've put in 100,000 in a startup. I want to. Will I be willing to pay 10 euros just to make sure that 100,000 euros are being spent properly? Would I be willing to do that? Very likely, yes. Can I afford that? Yes. Now, an incubation, like an investor, will invest in anywhere between 10 to 15 to 20 startups. Would they be able to afford $200 per month in order to monitor all their startups now? Because when I combine their investments, that now we're talking about a couple of million, right? You're talking about $2, $3, $4, $5 million or euros for that matter. Would they be willing to pay $200 just to be able to monitor them and make sure all of them are properly compliant? There's no issue, the money is being used properly? Very likely, right? So you have to create a business model where paying that money for the service that the person's getting, right, has to come at a value that the customer is willing to pay for. Every time you ask the person to give you money, it's a give and take thing. The person is not paying for your service. It is paying for the value that your service is creating for that person's life or that organization's life. In the second scenario, in the compliance tool, the user is the investor is getting that value of monitoring that fund and ensuring that the next time he puts money into the same startup or the money that is being already kept in that startup, if the money is not being used properly, I can take all that money out immediately. Right? I can save myself the trouble. I can save the losses. And those losses would the benefit of preventing those losses is good enough for me to be paying a small amount of fee every month. I'm okay with that. Very simple idea, right? That's where it comes from. Now let's take a B2C, right? A simple judge my lawyer. Identify a good lawyer from a court. What's the business model there? Have you guys ever, if you've ever been, or you or your family or anyone you know, ever been into a court case, they know how difficult it is to find a good lawyer. Because every lawyer will try to sell himself or herself as the best lawyer in the universe. And he or she will able to, get your court case done in a couple of hearings in 4 months, 3 months time. But no one actually has the tool or the capability to sit and evaluate all the judgments that lawyer has fought in the past in order for me to know whether the lawyer is actually speaking the truth or not. I need to know how many years or months it will actually take in real life for that court case to conclude. Whether the lawyer I am hiring is not a corrupt one, who would not simply take money and, let's say, settle the case of the matter, or who would not take money and delay the matter. These are very real problems in the world, right? Or the judge that is judging my court case is not someone who favors the complainant too much or the respondent too much, or is not one of those judges who don't want to make a judgment. They simply let the court case run its course and allow them to settle it. I need to be able to know this as a user, as a consumer. I am not aware of the working conditions and the working operational, chaos of a court. How do I find? I am struggling. I am in panic. I am frustrated. Judge My Lawyer was simply a tool for you to show, for a user to know that just go through them. There is a ranking system, which lawyer is doing good, which one's not doing good. If the lawyer has promised to XYZ things, you can see how many days, months, or years that lawyer has taken on average to deliver the court case. You can see how many hearings that lawyer has taken in order to deliver those court cases. You can see all the past judgments. You can see all the winning rate, the losing rate, and the settlement rate. Simple stuff. Very simple stats that should be available to the public, right? Am I willing to pay for this? If I am just an individual interested in the court of law, am I interested in this? No. I'm not paying. I like the free stuff. I'll come on the platform, I'll browse everything for free, I'll see the ranking for free, and I'll go on the website, I'll go on Google and I'll search for the lawyer. What about a person who is actually suffering, a person who wants to file a case? I have a medical claim of, let's say, 10 lakh rupees or 1 crore rupees that I need to file against this organization or this body. Or there has been a wrongful criminal case against me, or there has been a civil case against me that I need to file or fight. I need to find a lawyer that I can trust. These stats allow me to get that. Will I be willing to pay, let's say, 100 rupees to identify whether the lawyer is trustworthy or not? 100 rupees is a very cheap or very low price for trust, right? Will I be doing that? I'm comfortable paying 100 rupees now than to waste 2 years of my life down with a wrong lawyer. It's okay. So whenever you're creating a model, whenever you're creating a business model, make sure that you are pricing the value of it. Right? Now, pricing the value of things is very complex. It is not easy. How do you do that? In many cases, startups will be coming up with innovative solutions that may not exist before. So how do you identify that? A good way of doing it is to comparing it with a competitive tool that was being used to get a similar idea or a similar value out of it. How much money is that customer saving from that tool? Let's take the last one, right? MoolSetu, the app for price check. Very simple thing, right? I just want to know what's the price. I'm a trader of, let's say, grapes, right? I want to know what, and I live in western part of the country in India. I want to know what's the price that the grapes are being sold for in the eastern part of the country or in the southern or the northern part of the country. What do I have to do? Every morning I wake up, I make calls to all the traders asking them what's the price, what's the market rate there, everything. Whatever the trader tells me, I have to trust. Or there is a common WhatsApp group where everyone's just adding the prices, telling them that this is the price. Or you just wait for 10-15 minutes, you will get an idea on that, right? When the market opens. After the first 15 minutes of the market opening, I will get information via the WhatsApp group, via the calls, or via the person who works in my shop who's getting me tea. Simple as that. Because he'll be able to tell me what price is the next person sell it for. As simple as that. Right? But is it trustworthy? Is this still a bit of a chaos for me? Yes. How much time am I spending on it? 15 minutes. What if I get a customer in those 15 minutes, the first 15 minutes? Now, let's say I do a price check by checking the price of grapes in my market, in my surrounding, right? just checking the 20 shops next to me. Those 20 shops have to make a sale for me to realize what the price check is. I'll have to identify, I have to look for the customers for the first 15-20 minutes. So first 15-20 minutes is a complete chaos for everybody in the market. I can use the reference of yesterday's price point to then talk about today's price point. But it's still a bit of a chaos for me, right? I'm still spending money. I'm still spending time. I'm not saying money. I'm spending time on it. It's still a lot of chaos for me. Some of the traders have come from, let's say, Delhi, or some of them have come from Calcutta, which is in the east of India. How do I know that the price I'm buying it for is fair, or the price I'm selling it for is fair? The traders on the call, all this trading is taking place over the phone call. I don't know what the real price is over there. How do I do that? The government websites give me an updated price to a certain extent. At the end of the day, that may or may not update from not all the markets, from some of the markets. But I need to be able to track all the markets so that I can identify the market where the prices are highest and I can sell my goods there. Otherwise, I'm losing on revenue. How do I create or how do I price the value in it? Right? How do I price the value of my app of price check, an instantaneous price check app here, which is allowing me to identify the market where the prices are highest, allowing me to identify markets where the prices are lowest so I can buy low and sell high, allowing me to calculate the transporting cost of the goods because the goods also have to be transported, right? And in all of this, I'm making money. How much do I charge for this? There's no question, there's no right answer to it. What you do here in this case is a price check, right? There will be many times where you will not know the right answer to this. So what you do is you start with different prices in different markets. I launch my app in the northern parts. This is how you do the price check. Different markets, or I target different producers. I have about 100 produce on that app right now. Oh, how much do you have? 100, 200 of them, right? So we have about 200 producers on that app right now. I charge different amount for each produce. I take the top 5 popular one, right? So the most popular ones in India are onion, tomatoes, garlic, ginger. These are stuff that every household is using in India. Commodity goods. So for the onion trader, I charge 10 rupees per view per day. For potato, I charge 20 rupees per view per day. Same for garlic, I charge 30. For ginger, I charge 40. Right? Now 40 rupees per day is about 1200 rupees per month. Right? Which is a premium I feel it's a premium subscription personally. I don't know these market. So this is my personal view. And I start with 10 rupees, which is about 300 rupees per month. Right? So I'm giving a range to the market between 300 rupees per month to 1200 rupees per month. And I test it out within the market, who's willing to pay for it and at what point. Let's say by the end of the first month, whatever user I have on the platform, I see, so obviously there has to be a number of traders as well, right? So I'll have, let's say, 100 traders of each of the category, of different categories. So I'll have 100 for onion, 100 or maybe 50 for ginger, right? So what I do is I see what percentage of my users are comfortable paying my fee every day for the same produce. What? If 10 rupees is very low cost, I am hoping 100% of my users will pay 10 rupees every day to view that thing. But if 20 rupees is also a very low cost, then people will be paying 20 rupees. The difference in revenue for me is 100%. 50% is like 100 and 200, right? That's almost double. So if I only go with 10 rupees per day, I've missed out on potential revenue. Get the point? I will get a curve based on percentage of users, repeat users per day, and I track it for, let's say, 1 month, 45 days, or 2 months. Based on that curve, I identify the right price point. If I'm getting the highest revenue and conversion, right? So and this is where you have to do your own thing, right? Which segment is giving you the highest revenue? Let's say my first segment, 10 rupees, is giving me 100% conversion. That's 300 rupees per month. But my second product, my second, what do you call? Ow, I'm missing on the words. My second price point, 20 rupees, I retain about 90% of the market. Now it is still 10% lower, but 90% of the market means I will earn about, what's that, 540 rupees, still higher than 300 rupees. Remember, I'm in this for the business and marketing. I have to make sure that people continue to use my thing. Same goes for 30 rupees. Same goes for 50, 40 rupees, 50 rupees, whatnot. After the end of those 45 days, I study the data and I identify the price point at which I am making the most money and my most users are getting retained. And I find a compromise for myself between those two price points. Let's say I'm retaining the most amount of users at the price point of 20 rupees. I'm assuming, but when I go from 10 to 20, I'll get less number of users. Maybe not. Similarly, I check the price point of 40 rupees, 50 rupees, 60 rupees, whatever. 40 rupees per day says that I get retain about 50% of my client, but I have a steady income coming as well. I look at the two price points. I have the highest number of retention, I have the highest number of revenue. 2 points I look at. My range, I compromise, that's my range of compromise. Right? My charges should be between that somewhere. And now again, you have to test it out. And you have to keep testing it out till you find a price point at which most of your customers are comfortable with. Once you identify that, you can apply that thing uniformly across all the products if that is what your market demands. If not, you can continue simply slowly transitioning it to that price point to test how each feature works. Now, let's say if in the first 2 months, if I keep the price point of 10 rupees and then I increase it to 20 rupees, will the customer stay with me? Maybe not, right? But what if I keep the first month as 40 rupees and I give him 75% discount for the first 2 months? Different approach to things, right? I'm doing the same thing. I don't know what my price point is going to be. So I keep my price at 40, whatever my maximum is, and then I give them discounts of different ranges for different products. It's a marketing gimmick. Allows you to play around with your prices and your customers to retain themselves. Your customer is aware that after 2 months, my price is going to be this much. But in those 2 months, will I create enough value for it or not? Right? So this is how you go and evaluate all your customer segments. So each customer segment that you've identified last week, and for each customer persona, you go and analyze this stuff. So the value that you're creating, the value for that, the range of the value or the price point for that value that you're creating, and how I will to test the market for the right prices. You do this and you will still manage to make a decent revenue. Right? Good. That's it for today. For an activity this week, we would be sending you a business model canvas. It's a very simple activity that allows you to simply list down all your partners, your activities, your channels, your value propositions, activities, resources, all the things that is asked you to list early on, right? So we'll share it with you. This is not a model that we have developed. It is a model that's commonly used in startups. But I would strongly recommend all the startups to work on this. Just write it down. It is for your own benefit and for your own understanding as well, right? It allows you to then identify the value that you're creating and then the price points from there, right? So thank you so much for staying for so long, and I will put up the next video next week. Have fun.